Hi guys, here I'm going to show you how to do lookups in Excel that return the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, the nth result from a list. I'll show you how to do one example with a VLOOKUP and one example with an index lookup. One will require a helper column, the other will not, but it will be an array formula. As well, I'll show you how to get the first and last results in a list and how to very easily get things like the highest and lowest quantity, highest and lowest total, highest and lowest amount without having to change the lookup formulas.
Before we start, check the video description and click the link to TeachExcel so you can download the files for the tutorial and follow along. And make sure to subscribe and accept notifications so you can see all the new tutorials.
The example for this tutorial is going to be some basic sales data. So I have 3 products here and I just copy pasted them so each one appears 4 times, and then date, amount, quantity, total, and we want to return the last 3 sales. We're going to return the total amount. In this first example, we're going to use the Vlookup formula, the Vlookup function. That's going to allow us to have a smaller function. It'll be a little bit easier to manage. However, we're going to have to create a helper column. So over here, we want to have the last 3 sales. Now what you need to do to identify that, like I said, do a helper column. So we're going to go over here. So we go here, we go insert to insert a new column. And yeah, it kind of makes our data set look not as nice, I guess, because we have to make this little helper column. But don't worry, the second example does not require a helper column. Now what we want to do here is we want to add a number to each one. So we have ASCA here, so that'll be ASCA 1. This will be 2, 3, and 4. Now, of course, you can do it by hand. You can type out ASC-A1. And you don't need to put a dash or a space or anything like that with the 1 here. You just need to have the 1. It doesn't matter what it looks like because later we can hide this column. So an easy way to do this for a large list is simply go like this, equals this cell. Then we use the ampersand to concatenate, and now we need to come up with a way to have the number at the end. And to do that, we can count the number of occurrences of this value. And we do that using the COUNTIF function. So COUNTIF, open parentheses. And we're going to do a fun little kind of trick here. For the first argument, we do the range. So click this guy once, and then do a colon. And you'll see A2 to A2. Select the first A2, so not the entire thing, right here. Then hit F4 just to put dollar signs in front of the A and dollar signs in front of the 2. What that means is when we copy this down, this A2 will not change, but this one will change. That will increase our range, and I'll show you how that looks once we finish this. So range, now comma, criteria, well, we want to count this value right here. So right now it is saying count how many times ASC-A appears in range A2 to A2, so cell A2. Well, it appears once, so that'll output ASC-A and then a 1. ASC-A and a 1. Now I can copy this down and it should update. So we have a 1 here, and then here we have a 2, 3, and 4. Now look, so it goes here for the range A2 to A2, and here it'll be A2 to A3, A2 to A4, and so on. So by the time we get to the second A product, it's A2 to A5, and we have 2 A products in this range, one right here in A2 and one right here in A5. That's how we get it to output 2. And since we put dollar signs at the beginning here, we made it absolute. That does not change as we copy down, but the bottom one increases by 1 with every row that we copy it down. So that's how that neat little trick works to automatically number it. And now once you've done that, one of my favorite things, if you don't want to have formulas here, is just select all the data, Control-Shift down, then hit Control-C, then Alt-ES-V, Enter, and you've now copy-pasted values. So all we have, simple text. Easy peasy. Now that took some time to do, but unfortunately we have to do that for this one. So let's get to the formula. I'm going to go ahead and make the date column smaller, amount, let's make it smaller, okay. Doesn't really matter right now. And let's go over here for the Vlookup function. It's basically just a very standard, simple, easy to do Vlookup function. So equals Vlookup Our lookup value is right here. This is what we're going to type in. You don't want to make the user type in the 1, 2, 3 or whatever. Or maybe you do, but usually not right after the part number. You'd want to do that in a different cell. So we do the lookup value right here. And then we have to go ahead and add the number. So once again, we use the ampersand. And you could just hard code it in there, 1, like that. But what I'm going to go ahead and do here is to select this cell that has 1 in it. So what that means is it's going to, right here for the lookup value, add the 1 to the end of this. So it will look for ASC-A1. It will find in the helper column ASC-A1. That's how we find the first occurrence, and we'll do the same to find the second and third. So let's go comma, do a table array. Remember that the leftmost column must be the lookup column, so we select the helper column. We do not start with the product column, so go like this. Select our entire data table. Oops. Do it again. Then comma, column index number. Where do we want to return the value from? Column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Column 5. And range lookup false for exact match. And we get 24. Let's expand this, make sure it's good. 24. Now let's go ahead and make this formula a bit more versatile. So we want to put some dollar signs in it. So I will hit F4. So that way we can copy this guy down, put dollar signs around our table array, and we leave H3 as a relative cell reference. So when we copy it down, it'll go down to here and then here. Enter, and now let's copy this guy down. So 3, ASC2, 3, and ASC3, 30. Perfect. That's all you have to do. So you create a little helper column, you add a number after it using that really cool count if trick, and I'm going to go ahead and put the formula back in here so that you have that when you download the workbook. And then you just do a simple VLOOKUP, and the only extra thing you have to do is add the number of the occurrence you want to return right here. So now let's go ahead and return a result from the very end of the list. So this will actually be, since my dates are, okay, the dates will be reversed normally. So your earliest date wouldn't be up here, it would usually be down here, and the data is added at the top. But let's not worry too much about that. You want to get something from the end of the list. So I'm going to change first sale to end of list. Be a little bit more clear. And here, start of list. Okay, so to get one from the end of the list, I'm going to go ahead and copy this dude. And basically all that we want to do right now is replace this reference right here, which up here would be 1, 2, or 3, with the largest number that can occur. So what's the largest number down here? Well, we just count how many times our lookup value occurs in the list, and that's how we get it. So it's really easy. So all we do is replace the H3 with a equals, or we don't need equal sign there, so just count if, open parentheses, our range, so we want to count how many times it occurs here. Sorry, my mouse is a little crazy. How many times it occurs here, and our criteria up here. Then we close the parentheses, and let us go ahead and hit F4, so we have some dollar signs around that, so we could copy paste it and it won't change. So now we count how many times our lookup value appears in the list. In this case, it will return 4 because it appears 4 times. So it will put a 4 right here. So it will look for the lookup value ASC-A4, ASC-A4 right here, and it should return 6. And to get the start of the list, simple, same as first formula above. So start of the list, this guy right here, just number 1. End of the list, count how many occurrences there are in the list. And lastly, because nobody likes helper columns, and it just confuses people, especially your coworkers when you send it out and it messes up the spreadsheet, let's go ahead and hide it. So we right click the column header, the B, and we click hide. Now our helper column is gone. Make these guys bigger, go over here. Perfect. So you can't even see the helper column. No one but an eagle-eyed coworker is going to notice that column B is hidden. Looks nice, looks neat. You have very simple, easy to manage formulas for the future. I think that in the majority of cases you should use this method. However, let's go ahead and take a look at the method using the index function. It's going to use an array function. We will not have to have a helper column for that one. So let's go to the next worksheet. Okay, so the formula we're going to use here is a bit of a doozy. It's a bit of a big one. So what I am going to do here is to try and break it down for you. First, I'm going to paste it in right here. And this is the big, bad array index formula right here in all of its wonderful, beautiful glory. And the easiest way to explain this is from inside out. But first, let's go with the general concept. So we have the index function right here. This first chunk of it is the array. So E2 to E13. This is the data that we want to return. Now that we know where the data is, we just need to know on which row it is. So the next section is just to return that row. And this right here is the next section. So this is the big one. Let's go ahead. I'm going to copy this. Let us make sure that Excel sees this as text. So I'll put a single quotation mark right there, hit enter. Go down here, single quotation mark, enter. We're going to slowly break this out. Let's move these guys down a little bit more. Let us break it just one more level down. Okay, this one right here, and it should now point to this cell. Now we're at the core of the formula here, the array formula. We have an if statement, and this is where all the array action happens, and that's where we get why we get this kind of format right here. So what we have is the lookup value right here, and we want to find out where this lookup value occurs within the list A2 to A13, A2 to A13. So where is ASC-A? And what this is going to do is return a bunch of true-false values. So when it looks through the list, it'll say true for here, then false, false, true, false, false, true, and so on. And what we want to do when it finds the value is we want to return something from that. What do we want to return? We want to return the row. So here we use the row function and we run it on the exact same list A2 to A13. That's going to tell us in which row every match occurs. So when it matches ASC-A right here, that returns true. Then we go over here. What do we return if it's true? We return its row. That returns row 2. Then it goes down the list again. Okay, ASC-A, so it will return row 5, then row 8, and then row 11. If this check returns false, it is going to return what we put in here for the if statement for false, which is nothing, just an empty space, 2 double quotation marks with nothing between them. And for this to work, you want to do that. Do not put a 0 in here. Put it like this. Otherwise, the next part of the formula isn't going to work so well. But what is the -1 right here? Well, the -1 is to offset the fact that our table does not begin in row 1. It begins in row 2. And remember, the index function, the second part where we are right now, we need to return a row reference for the table E2 to E13. And the first row in the table is always 1. So our table begins with E2. So that is row 1. That's why we have to offset it for the fact that our data begins in row 2. Now, if you did not want to worry about that, if you did not want to have the -1 in there, you could make your data table. So you could make the index up here, this argument E2 to E13, and down here A2 to A13. You could make all of those start in A1. And then you don't have to have the -1 here because you don't have to offset for anything. So you could make your table encompass row 1. That's one way to get around that. But all you need to know is that the purpose of this dude, now that I've gone through explaining it in detail, is to return the row number for all of the matches. And since it is in an array formula, it returns all of the row numbers. If it is not a match, it returns an empty space. Now that we have our row numbers, we can do something with them. So I'm going to go ahead, put a single quotation mark here so it stays as text, hit enter, and let's go up here. Once you have your row numbers, what we're going to have is we're going to have row number 2, row number 5, row number 8, and row number 11. Well, as you can see, that makes it pretty easy for us to get the first occurrence, second occurrence, and third occurrence. All we need is another function. We need the small function. I'm going to remove this comma right here. Now it becomes a formula. Let's put these back where they belong. Okay, so right here is what I just explained to you, the if statement. And then right out here, we have the small function. And we can see when we start typing, the small function returns the kth smallest value in a data set, for example, the 5th smallest number. So it is perfect for us. So right here is our array of numbers. And which one do we want to return? Well, right here we could hard code it. So it says G10 right now. We could put a 1 that returns the smallest value. This 2 returns the second smallest. 3 returns the third smallest. This is why, by the way, you did not want to put a 0 for the quotation marks here. You just put the quotation marks, so it's text instead of a number, because here we want to get the smallest value. So here to make things a bit more dynamic, instead of hard coding the value, we go ahead and we select this cell right here, G10. So that's going to input 1. So that's going to tell us to get the first smallest value. Easy peasy. Put the single quote so it's seen as text by Excel. Now we go to index, and up here we have fully explained our second argument. All we need now is the place where we want to get the data from. Let me remove the comma so it's formula. There we go. So all we need now is this reference right here. And the very last thing, remember, it is an array formula. You must use Control-Shift-Enter to input this guy. Control-Shift-Enter. And there we go, 24, 24 for the first match. Now let's go ahead and copy this dude. I will put a single comma, single quote up here to leave it as text for later. And go down here, paste. Everything's good. Remember, Control-Shift-Enter. That is how you have to enter an array formula. If we do not hit that, instead of getting 24, we get the value error. How lovely. Okay, so double click, Control-Shift-Enter. And now we should be able to copy this down for all three examples. 24, 3, 30, 24, 3, and 30. Perfect. And so now that we've got this a lovely array formula, I gotta say that it's probably not the best idea to use it in your workbooks, only because it's so easy to forget that it is an array formula. So 6 months down the line, you open up your workbook and you accidentally hit enter and you think, oh my gosh, what happened? All I did was look at the formula. What's wrong with it? And you don't remember and you can't see by looking at it that it's an array formula. Now, if you saw this section and you were really on top of things, you'd know it's an array formula, but trust me, it's so easy to forget, especially if you don't use these types of formulas every day. So yes, this is a cool way to do this, but it is easier, especially if you're working with other people who aren't as well versed in Excel, to use the helper column method and just hide the dude over here. Because this VLOOKUP formula, it's so much harder to mess up. I look at it, okay, life's good, hit enter, still works. So now you know how to do both methods, but I do recommend this one, I have to say. Now, yes, let's go and do the first and last, what I call it over here. End of list and start of list. Much better names. So it's a little bit different for this one. The start of the list is, of course, just going to be this. So I'm going to be lazy and just copy paste things. Same as first formula above, this dude right here. Okay, but for the end of list, it's a little bit different. Not much different, but a little bit different. So let's copy this guy, Control C, Actually, I'm going to scroll down just a little bit, over. Okay, paste this in. Here we have it. Now, just really one or kind of two things. Well, to complement the small function, we have the large function. And as you can see, it returns the kth largest value in the data set. So it's the reverse of the small, basically. So tab, all right, large. And now we just go over here to where G10 is. Right now it's pointed to the cell that has 1 in it, and just put whatever value you want in here. So if you want to get the largest, go ahead and put 1. Or you could have it reference a cell as well that we did in the previous example, so G10, 11, 12. But here I'm just going to hard code it, and I'll leave it in there as 1, and that allows you to get the largest value, which returns the value from the end of the list. Because remember, the values are returned here based off of their row number. So the value that's found at the end of the list will have the highest row number, and large returns the largest value. So that's all we do. Replace small with large, and then make sure that your number right here, the K argument, is either hard-coded to whatever you want it to or pointing to the correct cell. Then Control-Shift-Enter. Now we have 6, which is this one right here for ASC-A. Perfect. Now let's take a look at the last part of this tutorial. So the most sales, the least sales, etc., etc. So choose one of the formulas over here, Vlookup or index, whichever one that you want. I am using, the index dude right here. And in the last two examples, I showed you how to get the last so many values. But what if you want to see the highest sales total, for instance? Well, here, it doesn't work that way. We have 24, 3, and 0. Now there are actually a couple different ways to do this, but the way that I'm going to show you right now works with our same formulas. All you have to do here, let's say I want to do it by the total column, go over here, go to the data tab, or you can do it by right-clicking the cell, whatever, and hit A to Z. That way it's sorted smallest to largest. Okay, so I wanted to do it the other way, but now you can see it's 3, 6, and 24. If I go back here, do it the other way, Z to A, it's now 30, 24, and 6. And you can see that here, okay, I need to change this text again. Here, the end of the list is now the lowest value. And if I wanted to get the highest quantity sold or the highest amount over here, all that I would have to do for this formula, so remember that the formulas are different, the VLOOKUP and the index. For this formula, I just change this right here, the first argument. I'm returning total, but if I want to return quantity, I can just move that over to quantity, or amount, move it over to amount. And then sort by those columns. Now, there is an important thing to note when you are sorting data. It's generally, well, it's not always a good idea to sort your data unless you have a record of how it was before. Oftentimes, when you get data like sales, well, whenever you get sales data, you should have a timestamp along with that. And oftentimes, the oldest record, it's not going to be at the top of the list like this, it'll be at the bottom of the list. And it'll be sorted by date. So if you go through your data set sorting and making things in different orders, at the end of it, you can just sort by date once more to get it back to how it was originally. However, I'm going to show you a quick little trick. If you do not have your data set up like that, if you do not have a date column and you're worried about messing up the order of things, well, to do that, let's go ahead actually and, okay, now it's back in order. I just sorted by date. Let's say we don't have date. I am going to create a new column called order. And here, all I have to do is go down here, input a 2, select both, drag it down, and now we have our order. So we can go ahead and mess things up as much as we want. And then we can go back to our order column and get things going again in the original order. So that's a little trick. If you do not have a column that allows you to keep your data in order and you want to filter like this just to very quickly get whatever data you want to get, make sure you add an order column like this and you're good to go. Make sure you do not have your order column set up as a formula, by the way, because that can mess things up. Just have it hard-coded as numbers like this. Just enter 1 in the first one, 2 in the second one, select both, and copy down. And that's all there is to performing lookups in Excel in order to return the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, the nth value from your list.
I hope you liked the tutorial. If it was helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe and accept notifications so you can see all the new tutorials.